Hey, welcome. This is Raph from Adventures in DeFiKingdoms, streaming live above the keep in the hot air balloon. I'm hoping squatters' rights apply after so long that we'll be able to claim it as our own. Tonight I have Neindorf with me. Please say hi.
How we doing?
All right, and we have a very special guest, Samichpunch. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hey guys, yeah, thanks for having me on. I've just a quick introduction. Been in the DeFi Kingdoms community since day one, really. Been in crypto since 2017. I my fiat mind's job is that I'm an attorney, so I like to analyze things. I don't necessarily like to, but I read a lot and I write a lot. So a lot of you might have seen some of my Medium articles. And yeah, just excited to join you guys and talk about game mechanics and just DeFi Kingdoms in general.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I've been loving your articles. I heard you got a new one. Maybe we'll chat about in a bit, but I haven't had a chance to catch that one. So I got a question for you guys. We love this game, right? What is your biggest, let's call it a mistake or an oopsie so far?
Oh gosh, I remember it clearly. It was the night before Wishing Well went live, and I was on Discord messaging a guy to get a legendary for about 4,500 Joule. I have not stopped kicking myself before that little boom in the hero market, and it became forever out of my reach. So that's I guess opportunity lost. I'll peg as my biggest mistake.
Oh yeah, that's one. How about you, Samish?
Yeah, mine is also in the Gen Zero realm. So I have two less Gen Zeros than I originally minted, and I regret selling both of them. The first one I sold for 3,500 Joule, which at the time, so this was pre-tavern, so this was when everyone was in the DFK wiki Discord,
The
trying
Wild
to
West.
private deal. Everyone's using Sarah and Xyler for escrow. Anyways,
For
sold the
sure.
Gen Zero for 3,500 Joule, which was equal to about $8,000 at the time. So it kind of hurts, but you win some, you lose some.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. I didn't expect all three of our stories to be around Gen Zeros, but I was in there for the original mint too, and I think I had about 1,400 Joule was all I had scraped together at that point, lined up trying to mint that Gen Zero. And of course, I had my laptop, and I went to click the button, and it scrolled out on my screen, and I couldn't hit the approve button. And by the time I got to it, the price was at 1,700, and I was like, "You've got to be kidding me!" So
Oh man.
that's funny, but here we are. Awesome game. Still love it though.
Yeah, here we are. So, great question, Neindorf. So today is December 13th, Monday, and they had an AMA update today. It was the design team, and we also had Hubert in there as well to go over some game mechanics. And so the first thing that I want to talk about are a couple of points that stuck out to me, and then get your guys' feedback on affect your strategies or gameplay going forward. So the first item that I thought was interesting was there's a few questions around the future of hero combat. And so something from the data, I know you've looked at this, Neindorf, Mr. Zipper asked the question, but it's clear that there are hero abilities that are built into the system. We just don't have a lot of understanding of how those will manifest. And so it sounds like, as I'm kind of like piecing things together, and of course drawing on my past of playing video games, specifically RPGs, that eventually heroes are NFTs, and as you saw from leveling up, they're earning skill points. And at some point, we're going to be able to use those skill points to have some number of abilities per hero that will be there for the combat quest. So I thought that was a pretty neat nugget and something that's exciting. Has me looking forward to hero combat. So Neindorf, let's start with you. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think that's very fascinating. And the skill point concept, I don't know why I never even considered that. And then you dropped the announcement. I think it was Bolon or whoever it was about, oh yeah, by the way, and you'll see skill points. And I was like, oh, of course, it's got to be skill points for an RPG game. And then your brain starts spinning. How are we going to spend these? What are these skills we get to choose from? where's the skill tree, right? I mean, you got to start maxing that out. So
Yeah, right. So yours truly actually had a chance to, during his lunch break, I was scarfing down some food, had a chance to ask a question, kind of fumbled it around a little bit, but ultimately try to ask about the balance of having a diverse hero party. Again, thinking about RPGs or video games for combat quests, and it sounds like Hubert did confirm that there you can send up to 3 heroes. It makes sense to have them, not all be the same class. Samich, what do you think about that? And how are you planning on leveling up your hero stable to make sure you're prepared for war combat?
That's awesome. I mean, I think that's going to introduce a whole, I mean, that's pretty much any game with combat and parties. You kind of need that like party dynamic where certain heroes and party members will be good at certain things and not good at other things. It reminds me kind of like Diablo 3. I played a decent amount of, and you've got, heroes that spec purely as like support, glass cannon, ranged builds, tanky frontliner builds that don't do any damage but soak everything up. So the thought of like being able to theory craft around that is really exciting. As it relates to my summoning and impacting that, it's been I've been taking a similar approach. I mean, I didn't know, and I don't know what's going to happen, but I am trying to level up, a diverse set of heroes. Like I'm not just leveling up miners and warriors and knights. I've most of my leveling has been geared towards heroes that I think are going to be combat oriented as opposed to profession oriented. And within that subclass of combat oriented heroes, I am kind of, I've got in like the back of my head, like, hopefully this archer, I'm going to like going all in on like dex and, just with the very limited info we have in the docs, stats that I think would benefit, an archer as like, backline glass cannon type of build. And obviously 100% speculating, have no idea how it's going to turn out, but definitely trying to level up a variety of heroes.
Right, I totally agree, and I love the trip down memory lane on Diablo. That takes Neindorf and I back. I remember we've we've done a few quests there too. Love you bringing up about Diablo. Is I actually have seen it brought up a couple times in Discord. I think it's fair to say that this has been formative in kind of Hubert's outlook on the design of the game. He referenced it today in the AMA, and I saw it referenced in a Discord chat that he posted once. Now, Neindorf, you looked at this and you keyed me on it, but he mentioned something about luck playing an important role in the future. Do you recall what that was?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the specifics, but it was a relatively early AMA, and he basically made it seem he reiterated that fact that it's going to have an impact on everything. And I think the question was originally around summoning at the time, because again, there wasn't really much else you could do with these NFTs. But I think that as we've gone forward and now we're starting to talk about, adventure combat quests, I am pretty confident that he's going to have that built into these contracts, into these, these roles that you're going to get, even maybe these possibilities of winning land in a quest. So I am personally a firm believer in the luck stat. And also to play off what Samich said too, picking heroes, I definitely have a guy that I picked out as he's only a rare for, so he's not maybe the greatest, but I'm definitely leveling up his, vitality along with his endurance, thinking of specifically building that tanky, soak up the damage kind of guy.
Nice. So something else that they brought up on the AMA today, now switching subjects a bit, is that there is going to be an item auction house. It sounds like it's going to be located in the tavern, and it'll be a place for users to sell their items. That's a little different than the marketplace, where you can be hamstrung by limited liquidity of what's out there in the marketplace. And Neindorf, I believe you were thinking about or had some speculation on hero sales and how an auction there could evolve and be different in the future.
Yeah, that was another thing that the API will show you. If you look, they call them auctions, and there's like starting and ending prices and durations. And I believe I also caught some wind of that on an AMA also, that I believe it was Hubert or maybe it was Frisky said that, they plan to potentially support auctions for heroes so that you don't have to, you say you list a hero for 200 jewel, and then 2 days later, now it's 180, and it gets kind of tedious to go in and recalculate all that all the time. So I think that might be something else we'll see moving forward to help make selling heroes easier.
Nice. So, as I mentioned earlier, today is Monday, December 13th, and this Wednesday, and I can't believe it was really not brought up on the AMA, but this Wednesday, gardening drops. This is the 3 of the 4 legs on the chair. So, Samich, why don't you tell us a little bit about the mechanics of gardening as you understand them?
Yeah, sure. So I had to go back and consult what my friends and I refer to as the sacred texts, which is Hubert's all his Discord messages, which at this point there's a lot of them. But looking at it, this is my understanding of how it'll work. So you have one gardener. You can send one hero, and I shouldn't say gardener, because that infers that they have to have the gardening gene. They don't have to have the gardening gene. So one hero per liquidity pool. And right now there are, I think that's with respect to the incentivized pools, right? So not some random LP pool that somebody creates. And there's 14 incentivized liquidity pools right now. So, if you could send out a hero on each one of those, and then the rewards you get depend on whether you have liquidity, you're providing liquidity in that pool or not. And the ones in which you are providing liquidity, that will essentially open up the opportunity to just straight up earn jewel rewards. It's not this concept of locked and unlocked gardening rewards. This is just a quest reward straight from the quest pool. And then for pools where you don't have liquidity provided, you can still quest there, and you can just earn other items. They've referenced things like herbs, things to make potions. They've referenced in the past that there is going to be an egg for every single type of profession. So, foraging has gray eggs, fishing has blue eggs, gardening will have an egg, and mining will have an egg. So I suspect eggs are on the table for those quests. And then, I think just crafting items. And I suspect there will be a healthy dose of just items that are intended to be sold to Zada, the vendor.
So let's take some bets. What do you think the new version of the garden bloater is going to be?
There's already the ragweed, right? So I don't know, it's got to be some kind of a weed or something like that.
Maybe it'll be some sort of carrots for all the buns.
Oh yes, people love those things.
Yeah, people go ham on those buns.
Yeah, if my egg hatches into bun, I'm going to be a little disappointed. Don't come after me, bun community.
Oh, that's right. You got an egg. You lucky. That's
nice. You got a gray or a blue egg?
I landed a blue egg. Yeah, I'm feeling lucky. All right, so now there will also be similar stamina mechanics for on profession, off profession, but it's going to be a different amount of time for gardening. Is that right? Do you guys know off the top of your head, or is that something that we'll have to share in the documents later with our listeners?
Yeah, it's I had it pulled up earlier. So I think it was 200. Did he say? So you'd essentially be able to run for 10 minutes per stamina point. I think that was if you had the gene. I should probably double check that though. But
it'd be nice to be checking my phone a little less often. So while you look that up, we'll keep talking. Level up strategy. So now we're almost a week into leveling up. We have the meditation circle, which is amazing. And there's also the atonement runes and knowledge of that dropped as well. We can dive into that a little bit later. My strategy was going to be leveling up 3 to 5 heroes at a time, and I'll admit I went a little level up crazy and leveled up I think 7 of my 15 heroes that I have. It was just a little too addicting, and I just had to keep going. Now I imagine as the Shiva's runes costs continue to increase level over level, that I'll probably tone that back to somewhere between 3 or 5. Again, trying to build that balanced party of heroes. How about you, Neindorf? What have you been doing?
Yeah, I think I fell into the same sort of deal. I didn't anticipate doing as many, but yeah, one rune and what, zero point 0.1 joules is cheap to get a nice, somewhere between 5 and 10 stat points or something like that. So yeah, I think I did about 7 or so as well. Although I probably will hold off on all but my top 2 or 3 now, similar to like you said. It just seems to make sense as runes are um, more and more of them will be found too. And that was another, maybe this is almost a retraction from my statement in the previous podcast where I thought maybe runes would start to get expensive. They've actually come down. I think I saw them this morning that they were like 4 joule a piece or something like that. So maybe they won't be as big of a deal to level everybody up, but at least for now, until I can find more questing, I'll probably tone it down a little bit as well.
Yeah, and Samich, you're going to have to jump in here. You were recently on a podcast. Do you want to give it a shout real quick? Because you guys dropped kind of a logic nugget about, the fact that 2 more quests are dropping and that heroes will have a 5 times more likely chance to get a rune in the profession that aligns with, or in a quest that aligns with their profession. That in effect, it's kind of almost doubling the amount of runes that are out there in the marketplace. That hit me, and I was like, oh yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Go ahead and give us the name of that podcast that you were on recently.
Yeah, so that's the Inner Grove, and I will be, I think, consistently airing with those guys. But yeah, we're trying to tackle like kind of hot issues that we see, in the Discord. And I mean, we're all very into the game as well, like my close group of friends. And so we're just trying to like you guys are doing right now, talk over these issues like we do just in real life. Like, hey, what are we doing with Schvoss runes? And so yeah, we talked about this on our last podcast episode, and the way that it works, if you have, it's like a 0.2% drop rate without a profession gene, and if you have the profession gene, then it's 1%, so it's a 5x increase. And so what that means is we've got an army of gardeners and miners right now who are running foraging and fishing quests, who are essentially trying to pull runes at a 0.2% rate. And once they're able to start actually doing their profession, that will increase their rate 5x. And as at a very basic level, you could just stand back and say, okay, well, if we have two professions running right now, and assuming an equal distribution of gardeners, miners, foragers, and fishers, we should have essentially a double amount of supply once gardening and mining are out. And I did mention this on the podcast at the time, that at the same time, we're also going to start seeing people hit level 3, level 4, level 5, and those will require more and more runes. But I don't think that the increased rate of consumption is going to be on par with the increased supply, just because it's every subsequent level is going to take a long time. But I don't know, man. I've had terrible drop rates with runes, so who knows?
Yeah, I tried to stock up on tiers right before the price plummeted, so it's a little bit of a gambler's market out there as well.
Yeah, and I think we should also note too that they've made it fairly clear that this is definitely a kind of game where the more you put into it, the more you'll earn. And I think kind of in those same regards, they want these first few levels to be relatively inexpensive. So I think that I would agree with your statement that these first level runes are probably going to be fairly affordable. Now, what is it? Every 10 levels, the rune type changes, and then I expect that to grow in expense fairly quickly.
Yeah, I think and correct me if I'm wrong, Sandwich, but I think the rune type changes, but also then you see a decrease, kind of an inverse escalation of the prior rune. And so the Shivas rune for 1 to 10 goes up every odd hero level up. So then at the end, you require 5 at level 10, and then it starts to scale down all the way to level 20. And then that cycles on and off for whichever rune, so then the next rune that's between 10 and 20, that one will then escalate down between 20 and 30. Is that right, Sandwich?
Yeah, and they actually just put a updated image in the docs on this that's really helpful. So like scaling from level 0 to 10 will go from 1 Schwass rune up to 5, and then levels 10 to 20 will always be 6 runes. But it's like you said, like 10 to 11 will be 5 Schwass and one of this level 2, which is called Moksha rune. Then you hit level 12 and it goes down from 5 to 4 Schwass, but then 2 Moksha. And then by the time you hit level 20, it's only 1 Schwass rune, but 5 Moksha. And then I fully suspect that to, from levels 21 to 30, be, just repeat that cycle with, the Moksha, which is the level 2 rune, and then a level 3 rune.
Nice.
So essentially I suspect you'll have 6, once you hit level 10, it's always going to cost 6 runes. It's just going to be a varied amount of like the level 2, the current level rune and the next level rune that scales up
Right.
as you.
Okay.
By the way, I looked at the Lost Annals of Gaia, and if you have the guard, like currently, right? I mean, obviously everything can change, and Hubert has specifically said everything's subject to change. But as of December 1st, the plan was your gardener could run for 120 minutes, gardening and mining, without a gene, the applicable profession gene, and 250 minutes with the applicable profession gene.
Wow.
So
that's actually very useful when you start to consider how many of these profession-specific heroes you might want to keep on your roster.
Yeah.
Right.
So if it takes 8 hours to replenish 25 stamina, you run them for 250 minutes. That's 4 hours. I mean, if you wanted to have gardeners running nonstop in all 14 gardens, you could have an army.
Yeah, no kidding. What are you gonna do with all that jewel?
All right. Well, let's go now to our Gen Zero check-in. So Neindorf, we decided this last round, and for those of you who are new listeners to the podcast, Neindorf and I, as well as one other investing partner, we have 2 Gen Zeros. We're fortunate enough of that between the 3 of us, and so we share the Gen Zeros, and we decided that it'd be nice for everyone to be able to do 2 summons with each of the Gen Zeros before their turn is up, and they share the Gen Zeros to the next person in line. So tell us, you just got done with your second turn. What was your strategy?
Yeah, so I mean, I was looking at floor prices and everything, and it had shifted a little bit since the previous time. And I noticed, since we've got both a pirate and a monk, I'd seen that there were relatively few monks for rent. So I was like, you know what? Our monk also was on a cooldown cycle that ended about 3 hours before our pirate. So I was like, you know what? I'll just put a high number out there. I was like, I think I'm going to pull the trigger on renting for, say, I think it was 60 jewel I ended up going for. I know we said we were almost never going to do that, but yeah, I did it. I rented him out.
Yeah, I couldn't disagree with it more. And as our obligatory Jurassic Park quote makes an introduction, as John Hammond says, "I don't believe it. You were meant to come down here and defend me against these characters, and the only one I've got is the blood-sucking lawyers." And in this case, I got Samichpunch, our very own attorney.
Nice drop.
Here. So, yeah, sorry for throwing some shade here. Probably first and last time you'll guest on our podcast now.
No, it comes with the gig, right? That's just like we took a class on that in law school on how to take attorney jokes. So we're
nice.
good.
Nice.
Well, I'm glad you got thick skin. So let's bounce to, you recently had a recent post here today, December 13th, Samich, on kind of your possible Gen Zero strategy or a proposal for a strategy on summoning and whether or not to go for advanced classes with a Gen Zero.
Yeah, so definitely I would recommend giving it a read to anybody listening. It's on my Medium account, but to kind of give a high level view of it, and let me lead with the quote, not financial advice disclaimer.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
so essentially the concept is what I see happening often is that people have a Gen Zero. Let's say you have an archer, and so you're like, okay, I'm gonna rent a thief. I'm gonna pair these together and shoot for a Dark Knight, Gen One Dark Knight. Which would come out with 5 out of 5 summons. And I'll spare you the gruesome details, but for multiple reasons, I think that you can be very profitable by, instead of shooting for an advanced class straight out the gate, you shoot for a pure Gen 1. And I have to caveat that as well. A lot of people think by pure, I mean like the primary class and subclass are the same, but that is not what I mean. I'm talking about pure in the sense of your primary class gene has the same dominant gene. So like if it's an archer, their dominant primary class gene is obviously archer. But then every hero has 3 recessive genes, so R1, R2, and R3, and it's essentially the concept of breeding 2 archers together so that it comes out with a dominant archer gene, but that the other summoning hero's dominant archer gene also comes in and takes place of one of the recessive genes, and then what that can do is help level out some of the variance that you experience when you summon, a warrior and a wizard and end up with a summoner, right? That's the effect of recessive genes at play. So that's one reason it's cheaper to summon with Gen 1s. You can do it faster. You're not on a 3-second cooldown, so you make these guys one time and you can pop out 5 summons. You can pop out up to 5 advanced summons if you're lucky, at a cheaper cost than 30 jewel per hero, because Gen 1s start with 16 jewel per hero cost, as opposed to pretty much everyone's Gen 0, which is at 30 jewel now. And at the same time, so you can be running this whole chain of like advanced summon cycles with these 2 pure Gen 1s, and then still doing, what on the next time your Gen 0s are off cooldown, you can either repeat that again or just go back to what you were doing. You could rent them out. You rent them out to fuel the Gen 1 summoning costs. You can just shoot for advanced classes right out the gate again. But I think there's some arguments for and against it, but I definitely think it's something to consider.
Yeah, as you were talking about this, and a great idea. I love the uniqueness of it. I wonder if that could be a future project for us to try to figure out, is there a way that you can understand what the recessive genes are, whether it's through trial and error on a hero and summoning over time, especially if it's a Gen 0 that has infinite summons. Could we perhaps understand, because right now it's just gibberish or gobbledygook, as it appears in the data, that you don't really know what the recessive genes are, right?
Yeah. Although I will say there are some very smart people out there. There's some developers out in the community. They have, that there is access to quote, the summoning contract, and with a specific hero ID, they can run a lot of simulations and effectively pull out those recessives. And I would not be surprised if we see a tool come out on that soon. Not only that, Hubert has mentioned that he wants to make that like available information. I don't know where you'd see it. Maybe it's like mousing over the primary class or something, but he did mention he wants to make it so that you can see what your 3 recessive genes are. And I think once that, they're not trying to hide it, and they're not trying to only give an advantage to developers who can parse the code and run simulations on it, which is possible. I think it's just a matter of implementing it. So, and it's a matter of time before everyone can see all that. But
I was just gonna say too, like with the new artwork that they've done on these hero cards, I think that they're trying to put just the pertinent information up there, because I don't know, those things look awesome right now. And if you start listing a bunch of stats, I think they're going to take away from the aesthetic. So I think that's probably part of it.
yeah, and maybe the place for that is like when you click on the hero details or something, you might be able to see some of that data. But yeah, those cards already have a lot of information on them, and they look great. And it's definitely going to be a balance, like between giving players the information they need to make informed decisions and not having like a super loud and noisy artwork.
Yeah, and I think there's also been, a little bit of excitement in the development team for people to go on the wild goose chase or the Where's Waldo hunt to try to uncover some of this information as well. And so I think they kind of like the community trying to figure this stuff out and then finding a way to publish it or make that information more readily accessible once that gold nugget is found.
Yeah, you can tell Frisky loves that. He's always mentioning on AMAs and stuff that he's super excited to see what the community comes up with. Anytime he talks about the subgraph, he mentions that.
Right. All right, so now time for us to talk about our current projects. I have released a version of the calculator for using that. It's a Excel sheet, or rather a Google Docs that's downloadable, where you could use it to look at summoning with 2 basics and trying to get to an advanced class. So if you were to use Sandwich's strategy of having 2 Gen 1s and you're trying to get that advanced class, you can use that tool along with plugging in those, again, not financial advice, at your own risk. Go ahead and grab the floor prices of the basics that you're trying to summon with and the advanced class. And then there's a section for what I call random hero, which is the activation of any of the recessive genes. And when you plug in those
Steve the Pirate, like I keep getting.
Yeah, Steve the Pirate. Our running joke of Steve the Pirate's a forager who goes out and just comes back with ragweed, 0 to his experience and 0 increase in his foraging skill. He just goes and takes naps. So you can use this calculator, plug in the floor prices, and it can give you an expected value of every time that you summon. This is potentially how much you can make back in jewels with the current market prices, assuming that all of our data is correct. Again, use this at your own risk. All right, so the last the project that we have going on is we're trying to get more subscribers. We are now on iTunes and on Google Podcasts, as well as Spotify and Anchor. And so please subscribe. And once we hit 200 subscribers, which is a big milestone for us, we are going to allow 2 members of our community to access our Gen Zeros for summoning at cost. And so we're going to allow 2 people to go ahead and use our Gen Zeros. We're only going to charge them for the summoning fees of the heroes, and that allows them to get a very cost-effective Gen 1 as a thank you to the amazing community and the listeners that we're building up. So with that, any closing remarks? Let's start with you, Samich.
I just, first of all, grateful for the opportunity to join you guys on this. Super excited about DeFiKingdoms in general, but I'm definitely looking forward to this tool that you have. I definitely want to take a look at it. So thanks for putting that together, and that's super awesome. The giveaway for the Gen Zeros, that's pretty exciting. That it'll be cool to see. I hope you live stream it or something, because it's always fun to see people pull really high rarity cards.
Yeah, that would be a lot of fun. Listeners out there who know how to use YouTube really well, let me know. I've already had some feedback of get on YouTube. We're trying to decide if this is going to be a multimedia stream or not. But it sounds like the community is certainly pulling us that direction. So if anyone has suggestions on how to set that up, go ahead and shoot me a DM in Discord. All right. Well, Neindorf, any close?
Oh yeah, no, I think that, like you guys have said, I'll just reiterate a little bit. This is a really fun opportunity for us, and doing a giveaway is something that the community loves. It's always fun to see, and all I can remember the last time they've done a big giveaway on Discord, it blows up, and you almost can't even watch it. The thing is just going nuts. So to take part in something like that's always fun. And and a little caveat to our summoning. I think we should allow them to rent out the Gen Zero too. I'm just saying. I don't think I lost the argument yet.
No, I think that's all right too. And just I guess we could give some details to our listeners as well. We have a pirate wizard gardener is the first Gen Zero that we have. And then the second Gen Zero that we have is a monk. I don't remember what his secondary class is. Do you off the top of your head, Nindor?
Yeah, I forget. There's too many heroes floating around.
But he's a monk fisher. Pick that up. So if you do summon them together, you have a chance to get that ninja fisher. So just something to throw out there, and we really hope we can achieve that milestone. And thank you everyone for listening to the podcast and helping us get there. So that's it for Raph in the hot air balloon high above the keep. Thank you very much for listening, and take care, guys.